Canadian Framelines has been in the works for over 2 years now, and even so, we've still yet to really get going. We thought that now, before we leave, would be a great time to catch you up on what we've been doing and how we got to this point.
The whole idea has really evolved a lot since we initially thought it up in the spring of 2010. At that time, Alex had just completed her grad film, so she had finished the SFU film program, and I had completed my second year film, which is another big scale project. So it was a big transition for us, and also like a great release of pressure. When we considered what we wanted to do after school, the future seemed uncertain. We were sure that we wanted to continue in film, but we didn't really know in what capacity, because both of us had a passion for working on analog celluloid film, but the industry we would be going into was really moving away from that workflow and continues to be. We also really wanted to travel, both of us, but didn't want to lose the momentum that we had gained through education.
Finally, as we sat on a park bench, we just had this moment of inspiration. We realized that movies and the film industry hadn't always been so sedentary and bureaucratic. In fact, the first 10 years of cinema literally teemed with people who were making and showing their own movies. And Ryder loved the idea of being the itinerant showman, traveling from town to town with his projector in tow. And ever since I was a little girl, all I've ever really wanted to do was be an adventurer. So we set to work trying to make those things happen.
So the initial idea I had a long time ago was, since I was brought up in the States, was to travel around the lower 48 and gonna go from town to town and make films and show them and tell stories. Kind of raconteur style. But Alex countered, why not do Canada? Because Canada is surely underrepresented in Western media. And this is something that, had been close to her heart, the whole time I knew her, telling Canadian stories whenever possible. And since I was eager to learn more about the country in which I was pursuing citizenship, that being Canada, of course, we decided to go with Canada to learn more about its stories and foster interconnectedness in its communities.
So the fall of 2010 came around, and Ryder and I were both back in school. We didn't have the most involved semesters, so we'd spend a lot of our spare time perusing Craigslist, looking at RVs, vans, buses, trucks, any large vehicle that we thought we could turn into a live workspace, complete with a darkroom. Now, we knew what we wanted to do, but we always assumed that it would be a lot later in the game. We thought that, a year, maybe 6 months before we were leaving, we would be buying this vehicle and retrofitting it all in one go. Now, things kind of changed when we came across the vehicle that would become the pet.
A nice young man named Sal responded to our email, and we made plans to meet up with him. He and a friend had just driven down from Whistler, and they were just kind of roaming around Vancouver, but we managed to catch up with them in the Hastings Sunrise neighborhood, which was pretty close to where both of us were living at the time. I remember driving down Hastings Street earlier in the day before we were supposed to meet him, and we saw the bus parked in front of the London Drugs just on the side of the road there. And we're like, do you think that's it? And like, how could it not be? It's like pink and neon green.
It was this beautiful 1993 International Thomas 22-foot long school bus. And it was painted this bright pink and green, which I don't know if we loved or hated, but it was just so exciting that we decided we had to take a look at it.
This being December, it was dark by the time we met him later that day. And we were in a big parking lot kind of behind the London Drugs there. And there were only 3 vehicles there. It was our little car, his friend's full-size bus, I guess they travel in caravan or something, and what would become the pet. Both buses still had snow on them from the drive down from Whistler. Sal was there and he invited us, aboard to see the bus, and so we climbed in. He described it as open concept, which was pretty much right because it had been cleared right out. And it was nicely decorated. He had some curtains and rugs in there, but other than that there really wasn't much. A table, counter, and a bed, a low bed. but it was really nice, and he was really nice, and we'd walked around the bus and checked it all out, and of course we had to take some time to think on it.
Sal was leaving imminently to head back to Ontario, where he was going back to school. So a few days later, and 2 days before Sal was to leave, Ryder and I went to take another look at the bus. We talked about it some more, and this time we even got to drive it around. We settled on a firm price and went to go sign the title over. After that, Sal asked if he could have the night to move his stuff out so that we could take delivery in the morning.
The problem was that I was traveling back to New Mexico the next day, and I would be gone for a week. So that left Alex to bring the bus home by herself. Unfortunately, we hadn't quite figured out where home was yet,